Okay. Well, welcome everybody to the first kickoff meeting for the UN CEFACT project Global Trust Registry. We're very privileged to have with us one of the secretariats who will explain how the UN CEFACT body works and where it fits in, and that will be very useful, I hope, for everybody. So welcome, Kamala.
Thank you very much, John, for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, wherever you are. It's a morning in Geneva. I'm Kamala Husnudinova, and I represent the Secretariat of UN CEFACT, which is hosted at the UN ECE, UN Economic Commission for Europe, in the Trade Facilitation section. And I'm in charge of the Secretariat, and we're based here in Geneva. So I will give you a brief overview of what UN CEFACT is and what it does, its mandate and mission. The UN CEFACT is an intergovernmental subsidiary body of the UN ECE. So to put it in simple terms, it's the body where member states come together to decide on the norms and standards for trade facilitation. And mainly it delivers the standards for information and data exchange along supply chains, as well as policy recommendations that guide member states, policymakers in their trade facilitation reforms. Now, in terms of the organizational structure, we are governed by the Bureau. So the Bureau is consisting of the chair that is from Canada, Nancy Norris, and currently five vice chairs. Sometimes there's more, but for this term we have 5 vice chairs. Steve Capel, whom you probably know, and who is overseeing this project in his vice chair capacity. Steve Capel is from Australia. Then we have vice chairs from France, Kyrgyz Republic, Azerbaijan, and Italy. And in addition to the Bureau, we have a sort of a supporting role that are the role of the regional rapporteurs that are coordinating the activities of UN CEFACT in different regions. Currently, we have the regional rapporteur for Asia and the Pacific region, for Africa and Latin America and the Caribbean. Now, the Bureau of UN CEFACT meets monthly. And it is the meeting where the Bureau and the Secretariat come together, where we discuss any ongoing issues, any project deliverables, anything that needs approval of the Bureau. And then once a year, we have the meeting of the plenary, which is the decision-making body of UN CEFACT. And it consists of heads of delegations. So each country nominates a head of delegation to represent the voice of the country at the plenary. And we meet on an annual basis with the next in Geneva, with the next plenary meeting taking place in Geneva on the 3rd and the 4th of July this year. Now, briefly about, again, the deliverables. As I mentioned, mostly this is normative work. We deliver information and data exchange standards and policy recommendations. But in addition to that, we also do some capacity building, which is subject to donor funding. This is not funded by the regular budget, but there are cases when the project raises the funds for additional, for the pilot projects, for the capacity buildings in the country, to test the instruments that UN CEFACT delivers and to deploy them in the country setting. In terms of the framework for the work of UN CEFACT, we have the program of work that is being adopted by member states every 2 years. And currently we're operating under the 25-26 program of work, whereas at the next plenary in 26, we will be approving and proposing to member states for approval the program of work for the subsequent years for 27 and 28. In the current program of work, we have the 2 so-called focus areas. where in terms of the substantive work, where we focus on enhancing digital connectivity along corridors, trade and transport corridors. And the second focus area is fostering sustainability, transparency, and resilience in value chains. Under the both focus areas, we deliver a policy recommendation in addition to other deliverables. This is the policy recommendation number 48 is actually tabled for the adoption at the upcoming plenary. And the policy recommendation number 50 is an ongoing work that will likely be tabled for the adoption at the plenary of 26. In addition to this substantive focus areas, we also continuously build the partnerships and coordinate our activities with key standard-setting bodies and international organizations. And whenever possible, we engage in building capacity of trade actors through the technical assistance projects. Within our work, there's also ongoing analytical work where we produce reports, sometimes jointly with partners, sometimes jointly within projects. And those are always published on the website. And in fact, any deliverables produced by UN CEFACT are a public good, and they're all available on the UNEC website free of charge. Here just some examples of key impact to date. Currently, we have developed 48 policy recommendations in the last 40 years, and those range from policy recommendations on establishing and implementing single window, to establishing the National Trade Facilitation Body, enhancing participation of private sector in such bodies. That also supports the customs reforms, the policy recommendation to help to support compliance with the ESG along the value chain. So there's quite a wide range of different recommendations that we have available. And in addition to that, the last one that has been just recently finalized, the recommendation number 49 on transparency at scale, will be presented to the plenary in July of this year. The standards are regularly maintained, and we have a number of so-called flagship standards, which we release on a biannual basis, and any updates are published as well on the UNEC website. Sorry, was there a question or?
I think that was just someone's mic coming in, Camilla.
No problem. Okay. Again, we develop everything in close coordination with the standard setting agencies, with the international organizations at the UN. And here we have sort of a demonstration of who we partner with, but it's of course not everything is on the slide, and we have way more partners that we could possibly have on one slide. Now this brings me to what is relevant to the project, and the Global Trust Registry project, which has been recently launched, is one of close to 20. We have 20 plus projects, so I think 25 at the moment, and those are all operating in different domains. We have for each project we have a project lead, we have the vice chair that is responsible for that project, and as mentioned, the deliverables of projects are presented to the Bureau on a monthly basis, and then subsequently to the plenary on a yearly basis. In terms of the rules and procedures, the projects, the deliverables of UN CEFACT are governed by the UN CEFACT open development process, and this process is consisting of 7 steps. The inception, requirements gathering, development of the draft, wherever necessary, the public review of such a draft, and then the project exit, publication, and the maintenance of, if it's a standard or even a recommendation, we sometimes issue new editions of those. This is a very short overview, but a more detailed one is on a subsequent slides. So basically the inception stage, which has been completed for the Global Trust Registry project, is where where the group of experts comes together to develop a project proposal, and that goes to the Bureau for approval. So that step has completed for the current project, considering now it's launching. And this is where the Bureau reviews the project proposals, considers its deliverables, whenever needed, makes adjustment, and then once the project is approved and ready to launch, it goes for it is basically considered launched. For some projects, when there is a standard or a policy recommendation as a deliverable, then we need in addition to the Bureau approval, we need to obtain the support of 3 heads of delegations in order to the project to formally launch. The second step would be the requirements gathering. This is where let's say the scoping, the stakeholder mapping happens. So this is where the team comes together to identify what would be the exact scope, what would be the partners joining the project, what would be the expertise, the necessary stakeholders. It sometimes happens when at this stage, actually, the scope significantly narrows down, because it could be rather ambitious in the project proposal, but then when the experts decide the actual deliverables and the steps that needs to be undertaken towards achieving these deliverables, it sometimes happens when the scope either is slightly modified or narrowed down, or it could be exactly as it is described in the project document as well. So this is also possible. Then goes the next step where you have project calls, as this one now. So some teams have calls every 2 weeks, monthly, weekly. It really depends. And the gathering of the input of in the case of the policy recommendation, the literature review, the necessary input. So this is where it all actually starts to happen. And the updates on the progress are submitted to the domain coordinator and then to the vice chair if it needs to go to the bureau for review or approval. The public review stage is for the drafts that needs to go for public consultation. So if you have, for instance, let's say the business requirement specification or the standard or the draft policy recommendation that needs to be consulted widely, then in this case we have a dedicated public review page on the UNEC website where such deliverables would be published for somewhat between 2 weeks and 2 months, and this is to be decided by the project team. And this is where we collect input and feedback on the document, on the technical deliverable from a wider expert community. This is pretty much when the project has delivered its work and completed its deliverables as stated on the project proposal. Then the project goes, the deliverables go to the Bureau for approval and for publishing on the EC website. And the project then would be considered closed unless there's again any modifications to the deliverables in the course of delivering the project, unless any additional deliverables are considered or added. And then finally, the publication step where we make the deliverable publicly available on the UNEC website. And of course, along the steps, the Secretariat supports with the necessary communications, with announcements on the LinkedIn post, on the highlights page of the UNEC website, on sometimes the news piece, the press releases. So it really depends on how, how relevant and how widely available the project team would like to make its deliverables. The final step is the maintenance, which is usually 1 year, 2 years after we publish the deliverables. So sometimes we issue the next edition of the policy recommendation or the update of the standard. And this is also done in close collaboration with the project team and the Secretariat. I think this is pretty much it. I mean, this is the general workflow, how the projects are developed and submitted. So on the bottom, the bottom line showcases the deliverables that are proposed in the project proposal that goes to the bureau that approves it. And then up to the plenary, which is the highest decision-making body. And on the left-hand side, you see the program of work and the terms of reference and the mandate. These are sort of the framework documents that guide the work of UNCFACT. And on the right-hand side, this is the UNEC Executive Committee. The Executive Committee is the parent body of the UNEC, and it approves the very high-level documents such as the program of work of UNCFACT or any updates to the structure, any updates to the organizational structure, to the governance framework, and possibly any updates to the rules and procedures. So this is the type of the documents that would go after the plenary also to the executive committee for the endorsement. I think I'll stop here because we're not going to go into the queue, which is a collaborative environment for the experts. But the only thing I would like to mention that in order to join a UNCFACT and contribute to its work as the expert, one will need to register on the UNCFACT on the UNEC website, where you have the Join UNCFACT tab, and then you would need to specify the country, and the head of delegation of that country would need to approve such a registration. So I'm skipping the conference slides, and the very last one is the key events that we expect to have before the end of the year. I mean, these are not even, these are the official meetings. These are the official meetings, such as the plenary, the session of the team of specialists on ESG traceability along value chains. And the next very important event, official event in this context, is the forum, which I haven't covered very much in detail, but basically the forum is where the expert community comes together to discuss the deliverables, to make progress on projects, to brainstorm on any new projects. And also it's a networking platform. We usually have somewhat between 200 and 300 experts during such forums. And normally we have one in Geneva and one elsewhere, hosted by a member state. However, this year we had to cancel the one in Geneva due to resource constraints and the financial crisis. I'm sure many of you know about it. But however, we are lucky to be hosted by Senegal, and we will have the forum in Dakar during the week of 24 to 28 November. And more information will be announced closer to the date, most likely after the plenary of July. Actually, I think I took a bit more of the time, and I'll stop sharing here. And if you have any immediate questions, I'll be happy to address. But if not, I could also be accessible by email in case you will have any follow-up questions.
Well, thank you very much, Camilla. That was great, and we've recorded it, so we can replay and unpack all the details that you provided as well. I know you said at the beginning you had a time constraint, so if you do need to go off to the next meeting, then please feel free. We've also got on this call. I didn't say my name. I'm John Phillips. I'm one of the co-leads of this project, and I have the delight of having my other co-lead on the project, Alina Nikagales, is online as well, as is the the originator of this project, as you may have heard describe Camilla, Steve Capel. So perhaps, Steve, do you want to just say hi quickly, just to sort of so people can see your face appear on the video call?
Well, here I am. So I'm a vice chair at CEFACT, and sort of kicked off this project because it spun out of another one called United Nations Transparency Protocol, which needed to get confidence in identity of things like product passport issuers. But that framework has a much more general use. Do you want me to give a 5-minute kind of why are we doing this, or do you want to do that?
We'll get to that in the slides we have, Steve. But please feel free to interject as we go through those slides, if that works for you. Okay. If you can stay with us. Alina, I muted your mic because there was some noise coming out of it. Could you unmute yourself and say hi? And Ian Jury's raised his hand. That's very polite, Ian. Wait 1 second, Ian, while we see if Alina can get mic unmuted. There should be a mute unmute thing at the bottom of the screen. While you're looking for that, and as soon as you found it, talk, please. But Eric, you put your hand up very politely. I haven't muted you.
Is it working?
Yes, you're working now. No,
I'll wait for Alina.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alina Nika. I'm the co-lead of this project, as John has already mentioned. I can see some of my colleagues are also online. I am a London business register in Spain since 2018 and based in Spain as well. And I'm glad to participate in this project. I will co-lead together with John, but I will focus more on the legal frame and on the legal aspects, and we will make sure that all the national registers of the member states that will participate in this project and will be listed in the Trust Global Registry will fulfill the requirements to be considered as such, as we rely on transparency, traceability, and we want to build a international Trust Global Registry. I can see here my colleague Carmen Miquel is attending as well, and maybe she can also introduce herself because she's here on behalf of CINDR, the International Land Registry Corporation, and maybe she can also say a few words and introduce herself.
Yes, hello, good morning. I'm in the car because I was on the way to my office and there was a lot of traffic, sorry. Yes, Alina said, I'm Carmen Miquel. I represent CINDR, International Property Registries Company and Corporation. And as he said, we are working in the legal frame, in legal aspects of this project. CINDR has in this moment 60 members from 60 different countries. They are institutions above all, and as well academic institutions. And I think we can help in this project to provide different institutions that will be able to provide trustly information about properties, about companies. And I think it can be very interesting and very important. I'm Spanish, Salina, but well, I'm representing an international association. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Eric, you have the floor.
I just had a question, in fact, because I'll be in Geneva when I saw the plenary dates pop up, and I was wondering, and then I also heard that the Geneva canceled. So is Geneva still going on, or was it a previous Geneva plenary that was canceled? And if it is going on, how can we either get an invite or register, et cetera?
Do you want me to answer that one?
Yes, please, Steve.
Sure.
Yeah, so the plenary is distinct to forums. The plenary is basically a get-together of member state delegates to approve programs of work and stuff like that. It's very administrative and not much in the way of expert discussion. It is open to people who happen to be in Geneva, but unlike a forum, you need an explicit invitation from your member state head of delegation, and then you sit at that member state head of delegation table.
Okay.
So yeah, but there are other things going on. Are you going to be there for the Global Digital Collaboration Conference?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So we can
So
cover it.
will I. So we'll
Right.
see you there.
Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So I thought what we might now do is kind of run through what the project's really going to be about, or what we think the project's really going to be about. So there's a few slides here that I'll sort of go through, and I've got Joe looking out for questions on chat and so on, so that he can sort of raise observations and stuff as we go through. So there's a few things. You may have heard Kamala talk about the open development process and a few other things. So CEFACT projects have a number of sort of qualities to them that we need to honor and observe. One of them is a set of codes of conduct, and I pulled the text out of these codes of conduct. I would hope that nobody has any objections to the kind of sentiments that are being expressed here. Perhaps the important one to recognize is this number 5, this idea around the intellectual property rights. So that working on this project, contributing to it, you effectively are agreeing to a royalty-free license or a no fee for use approach to the IP. There are details about how you can declare things in advance and do things and so on, but that's the basic principle. That's I've expanded a bit further on this next slide about the open specifications that we intend to develop, and there's a few details that again I've pulled out of the actual document. These documents are available to all of the stuff under the CEFACT is sort of an open process. So these are document texts that are available as PDFs, so you can look at the full text if you need to, and they're in our sort of project working folder, so you can kind of see them there as well. Right, about this project. Now, when we first launched the call for participation quite a few weeks ago in April, a lot of discussion occurred around the idea of this name, the Global Trust Registry. And I thought there might be worthwhile having a few kind of what we will and what we won't sort of messages around that title. So as Alina said, we will seek to recognize these sort of official authoritative government registries, understand how they work, the legal frameworks, and what they currently do in terms of issuing any form of digital verification of the data that they have. That may not be present, it may be present, we just want to understand what exists. We will be looking at how might we consider identifiers in such a way that there's some sort of interoperability. So you'll see later we talk about a thing called a digital identity anchor, and that comes out of the work that Steve has been leading the UNTP project, and we'll sort of look at that in some little bit more detail later in this text. We will be looking at governance frameworks. That governance frameworks is how might the CEFACT body itself look after such a thing as this global trust registry if it is running and maintaining. So what's that sort of governance framework? We'll look at how we can work with existing registries so they can prove their recognition to CEFACT. In other words, they become listed, a white list or whatever you want to think of it as. And then importantly, how they might then issue their own verifiable identifiers, how they might become enabled to issue things themselves directly. So the UN CEFACT project is not intending to become an issuer itself. It's not intending to sort of disintermediate or create a third party or secondary credentials, whatever are the terms you want to use, which means we don't want to be a central registry of all things. We don't want to issue secondary credentials other than recognition of existing state and territory registries. And we're not going to tell nation states what to do, nor could we. So it's sort of, it doesn't have the aura that some people are picking up on LinkedIn about discussion. So I thought that was reasonably important. There's a list of deliverables that we're aiming to produce, and the exit criteria that, in other words, in order to have deemed ourselves to have finished that particular deliverable, we must have achieved the following. So most of them are are sort of time-based. We will have a window during which we will allow public review, and then we'll process the public review. Things like, as you saw, the plenary approval, that's a particular point in time at which plenary meetings occur, and we need to give sufficient notice for the plenary meeting to actually let them review and absorb content. So that gives us a sort of several months, in fact, before the plenary meeting, where we need to have content ready for their review. And there's a few other things, like we actually want to try and build some implementation pilots and see if we can actually test and prove what we're thinking about, and we'll need to provide some guidance about how people might implement such a scheme. The project itself, I mentioned a little earlier, this digital identity anchor. And Steve, this is where, if you want to kind of chime in or correct anything I say, please feel free. This is an image you see on the screen that comes directly out of the United Nations Transparency Protocol, the specification that's been worked on for over the last 2 years. And it's a very simple representation of sort of a data packet. It's a verifiable credential, for those of you that are familiar with the verifiable credential concept. So it's cryptographically protected and signed, so it's tamper evident. You can tell who signed it, you can see if it's being tampered with, and all these other sort of qualities that verifiable credentials have. And it has a number of elements. So the elements that we're seeing here are illustrative rather than kind of normative. You'll find more details inside the spec itself around the details of the DIA, but actually part of what this project is about is to consider what might need to be in such a thing and how might it be represented. The idea of a digital identity anchor comes out of the process of thinking about supply chains. This is where this project started from, or the catalyst for this project, is the idea that if a person, a consumer, is looking at a product and they want to examine the kind of provenance, the authenticity of the claims about this product, they need to go through a process. Now, we're talking about a digital process here, so they're going to be scanning something that gives them a kind of a QR code or a barcode or something that gives an access to an identifier. They find out a bunch of information about the digital product. This term digital product passport is well known to those in Europe. There's a whole bunch of legislature coming out around digital product passports. So there's a specific defined framework for DPPs in Europe. We're using DPP as a sort of generic phrase around the general idea of a digital product passport and contents within. So inside that digital product passport, it will say who issued an identifier. We can understand that. We can then see, well, this particular digital product passport says it was made by a company that's based in Spain. Where would I find out whether, in fact, this company is registered in Spain as a Spanish company? I need to go to an authoritative source. That authoritative source would be the registradores in Spain, and I want to see if that is, in fact, recognized by them. And there's a particular process by which that sort of recognition, we believe, can occur. We're using these ideas of verifiable credentials. We're using ideas of decentralized identifiers. And a lot of what we want to achieve is a very decentralized, self-sovereign kind of model of thinking. So the idea is that a manufacturer, a company, has the right to create DIDs, but they want to say that I am the company that controls these DIDs and have that recognized by the registration office that has registered them as a company. So there's a sort of process by which they get recognized as a company, they prove that they're a company, they then say to the registrar, we'd like these identifiers to be associated with us, much as you might do other facts like trademarks and so on, such that if somebody comes across a DID, they can check in the registry to see if, in fact, that DID is owned by that company. So it's a process of cross-referencing and proving or verification. And when you see this in a larger scale, this happens to be an EV, electric vehicle battery supply chain, again, somewhat simplified because there's a lot more steps in this than we're showing on the screen. You get a lot of these verifiable credentials, lots of types of claims being made by participants, both about the product and about events that occur to the product, about their conformance to various external standards that they've been audited against, and so on. So there's a lot of little facts that issuers might want to make, claims they might want to make about their products and about the process and about what they've provided to the next consumer on the supply chain. And the idea behind UNTP is this transparency at scale, so that we might go from the sort of far right-hand side of the consumer, say, of products, and that consumer might be able to traverse back up the upstream to find the various histories and provenance of the product and the prior producers, theoretically right to the point where the ore is mined out of the earth. Most of us won't want to go that far back. Most of us will want to go back as far as we need to satisfy our kind of confidence requirements or and so on. And that's kind of what the idea is behind UNTP. To make this work, we've got to have trustworthy identity anchors. And the observation, the kind of reality is that the current legal basis of trustworthy identity anchors is the registrars in the countries. And that's the sort of fundamental reality. And what we're trying to do is to leverage that, to augment it such that it can be a part of this UNTP protocol. Did I see a hand come up? Did somebody put their hand up? So pause for a second. No? Good. Okay. Is that okay, Steve, so far?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I would just, I suppose, make the point that, you know, we've always lived in a world of greenwashing, counterfeiting, smuggling, financial fraud, and so on, but that's likely to get a lot worse with the advent of AI. And what we're trying to do is provide a counter to that sort of behavior. And through a statement of the obvious, I suppose, that a lot of trust is anchored not in technology, but in governance and business processes that have been running for decades, even centuries, around things like IP registers, trademark registers, land registers, asset registers, company registers. All these things have existed for a while, but pretty much universally, with some notable exceptions. They manage the registration and ongoing maintenance and eventually deregistration process. But the way that manifests is usually some sort of paper PDF. Here's your business registration certificate. And of course, you know, you can forge that with ChatGPT in 5 seconds. And so what we're trying to do is make something which a member of a register can use to prove their membership in a cryptographic way that's not forgeable. So I can prove that not only does this Australian business exist, but I am an authorized representative of that Australian business in my trading relationships. And that's the heart of this project. And I think the opportunity we have is to make that easy, scalable, not technology dependent. And when I say that, read without necessarily having any blockchain or layer 1 tech stuff, just a simple, scalable, but cryptographically verifiable way to give any register in the world that has some sort of strong governance process tools to equip its members with proof of membership. And that's quite a powerful idea, right? And actually quite simple to do. I think that most registers that are not doing this have done all the hard work. This is the easy work, right? The hard work is actually building the register and then registering and maintaining and deregistering members. So hopefully this will get a lot of attention and will bring some real value. But that's what it's all about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now this is more to the heart of what Alina's an expert in, so I tread carefully again. The point we're making is that these authoritative registers, lists of things, kind of have to exist in some jurisdiction, a legal framework. They kind of have no meaning if they don't live in a legal framework, because the legal framework gives them that meaning. Each of these registers, though, it isn't just that they have data, they have a set of things around them. Alina, please. Now you'll need to unmute yourself again, because there's something funny with the sound, but please unmute yourself and tell me what I should say.
Is it working? Yes. Okay, hi again. I saw that most of the people attending the meeting are from the tech branch and IT, and I would like to add that in my daily work as a land register, I deal with identity, ownership, and public trust. And land registries, like other authoritative registers, exist to give a legal certainty, to make rights visible, verifiable, and enforceable. And this is exactly what the project is trying to achieve at a global scale through digital means. So I would like to emphasize something that is essential from my viewpoint, especially in a group full of brilliant tech and IT experts, that digital trust is not just a technical problem, it is also a legal and institutional challenge.
Yes.
from our point of view as land registers. A digitally signed credential is only meaningful if the issuing register is a legally recognized authority. And the legal recognition does not come necessary or only from technology. It comes in the first place from law, governance, and from jurisdiction. So this is where, in my opinion, the Global Trust Registry can be transformative by listing authoritative registers worldwide and linking them to verifiable credentials. We are not only solving interoperability at the technical scale or level, but we are also laying the foundation for a legal interoperability and institutional trust. And I think as a co-lead, my role is to help to ensure that we build a governance framework that recognizes, on one hand, the legal obligation to issuing authorities, and also the process for a dispute resolution, revocation, or legal challenge. And on the other hand, I would like to mention that I heard even some of my colleagues and other experts that might participate in this project, or other people might have some sort of confusion regarding the title of our project, Global Trust Registry. Some of them in the first place thought, oh my God, we are going to create a huge worldwide database that would give access to our national databases, and this is scary. So I think this is an important thing to clarify and to mention, that we do not pretend to create like a huge worldwide register to grant access, unlimited access to other national databases. And but we only pretend to create a list of national land, business, trade asset registers, and to make sure that, as I mentioned before, that the registries that are a part of this global registry fulfill the requirements to be considered as such. And I think it's important to clarify this point.
Thank you very much, Lenny. Absolutely right. It's so important that we respect the sovereignty of the nations that are already doing their work and doing their thing, and just check to make sure that there's enough rigor, I suppose, that they've achieved, that we can recognize it, and that's really it. What's I don't know how much you know. Several people in this call know a lot about registradores in Spain. So they actually are a register that operates a lot of registries. So land and assets and ships and planes and companies and so on. Other governments may have separation of sort of the registries. They may be under separate government departments and so on. But the idea that we're trying to show on this page is that each of those inside one sort of nation state will be inside some jurisdictional framework for the country, and there'll be a set of registries they may have, and they may have all of them, they may have some of them. We're seeking to understand what they have. So this Global Trust Registry project, which could change its name, don't necessarily need to, is going to be interested in things to do with supply chains from authoritative registers. And that includes a list of things like land, facilities, products, business, trademarks, assets. Carmen, please.
Hello again. I wanted to add something about what Alina said. In iProcinder, we are very concerned with digitalization and all these new tools, because we consider that legal architecture must be parallel to digital development. And we know the different idiosyncrasy of the countries and the legal systems and the registry systems. And I think in this sense, we can be very, very useful for this project, because we study and we know how land registries and business registries work all around the world. And we are working in some projects with different countries to give them, to help them with the new structures, and above all in Africa, in those countries that are developing their economy. And I think it's very important what Alina said. Is it impossible to have a global registry in a sense of an only registry for the world? But we can try to find the structures and the concepts to understand what are we talking in every country, because sometimes what in Spain we consider property, in other countries has some differences. And I think it's a cultural difference as well, not only legal. And that's a huge work.
Yes, it is a huge work, and it would be very valuable. I think we are somewhat we have to be a little cautious about how much we choose to go down paths in this project. We should do as much as we can, but we should do no more than we can or should. So ultimately, it'd be fabulous to have a catalog of all of the registries around the world and what they register and the structures they have and so on. But even the first step is just really, in my mind, recognizing that these registries exist, and where do you go to find more information? And even doing that is itself a valuable asset to say, okay, you want to find out things about the Spanish economy and registration process, then go to registradores, and this is where you find more. And I think that sort of thinking is what we want to promote in the project. Now I'll move sort of forward a little quicker, because I did say I'll try and finish these 10 minutes before the hour, because people tend to start the next meeting on the hour. I'm suggesting we think in terms of 3 phases. The first is to understand what exists. The second is to define how we might recognize. And the third is to sort of guide implementation about what might be a future for issuing of credentials and doing other things. And those are sort of the 3 fundamental building blocks that I've got in my mind. These map to, you'll see a little later, these sort of list of all of these deliverables and the dates that are associated with them. This particular list I've drawn as like a Gantt chart, if you're familiar with project management sort of drawing things. You should probably see that this is both reasonably optimistic, perhaps unreasonably optimistic, but we're starting here, we're in June, and we're already theoretically capturing requirements on governance and digital identity anchors. And then we need to move quite rapidly into various other processes. By the end of this calendar year, most things need to have been done and be ready for review, such that we can reach this sort of July 2026 plenary, where things would be kind of endorsed or whatever. So we can take a little bit longer perhaps with the implementation testing and stable releases, but the documents themselves need time for review. I've suggested that this looks very definitive. That's what these drawings tend to look like. Deterministic, if we do this, then that happens, and a little challenging and very waterfall-like. I'm more of a fan of the idea of an iterative way of thinking about problems. This is a design life cycle, so it goes through understanding problems, defining how we might do something, thinking about how we might solve it, that sort of stuff. And that has a very similarity to understand what we're trying to do and what exists, define how we might recognize, and then guide the implementation path. Same sort of thinking. My 3 blocks are the same as the design thinking. It might feel at times a little like this, which is the design squiggle. Or we start off thinking it all should all be so simple. Steve, you said this, it'll be simple. I don't know what we're doing, John. It'll be easy. And yet I think we'll find lots of stuff. And eventually when we get to the other side of it, it'll actually be simple again. But we'll have to go through some stuff to get to the simple again. But the secret will be keep calm and carry on, which is a well-known phrase. And lastly, we are using, you're on a Google Meet call because we've got free access to that, Joe and I, through the company thing. And one of the requirements of a CEFACT project is that people shouldn't need to pay licenses to do the work to collaborate. So we can sort of make available stuff that people can use. And we're going kind of a Google Docs kind of process. And that's actually a place we're familiar with, Joe and I and others on this call, in collaboration for a number of the standards to do with decentralized identity and other work. So that's what we're proposing to use in the short term. We might well move to slightly more mature environments. I've listed the GitHub environment that the UNTP project is based on, and a number of the other CEFACT projects are based on. So we might move there. At the moment, we're going to stick where we are, which is on sort of simple stuff on Google Docs. And that was it. That was my quick run through. So we're 3 minutes past when I said I'd finish, but we're 7 minutes before the top of the hour. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Felix, for this wonderful presentation. I just wanted to invite my colleagues and the participants to register as experts if they already haven't. And looking forward to meet everybody in person in Geneva, beginning of July. I will definitely participate, and I hope most of us also.
That's fabulous. I unfortunately won't be in Geneva, but Alina will well represent the project there. Well, if there aren't any questions, what I will be doing is when we stop the recording, there's a transcript. We'll publish the minutes of the meeting, if you like. We'll make that available to attendees and to others interested in the project. All that we do on this project is going to be publicly available. And we're going to repeat this call in about 17 hours time for the US-based time zone colleagues, but they may all be in a dainty verse and other things that are happening in the US, but we'll see. And we plan to do this every 2 weeks. So our cadence that we're going to set at the beginning is a 2-week cadence. So if you look at the project calendar, there's a sort of event that you can see in the calendar that you can join on a 2-weekly basis. One time zone now for this group of people, and then in 17 hours for another group in another time zone.
So John, will you create a Google group that people can subscribe to and build a sort of a mailing list? Because I think people come and go on these things, right? What you'll find with these projects, I usually find, is there's kind of a core group of sleeves rolled up doers, but then there's a broader group of observers which transition sometimes into implementing, and you want them kind of watching and listening, because at some point they go, I'm interested to implement now, and that's quite an important constituency. Also, do you want me to set up a Slack channel for you in
I think
the UN Slack?
Yes to both, please. I think so. Those you'll be able to see the UNTP Slack channel and others that Steve will share out. But yes, we create a channel for this project on the same place. Yes, please. And I'm a yes, 2 thumbs up for the Google group. The only thing I've been wary of is using calendar invites with lots of people in the invite tend to get a bit messy. If you move that, yes, it sends off lots of messages. So I'm sort of thinking keep the calendar as a publicly available resource to look at, and you can copy it to your own and stuff, but not to invite people through the event because it gets noisy. But yes to Google Groups. Cool. Well, it's exciting. Good project. Thank you. And Mihai, you put a comment at the very beginning. Yes, I'm very interested in your project as well. So I'm looking forward to learning more about what you're doing. So we'll find out more soon, I'm sure. Cool. All right. Well, that's it then, guys. Thank you very much. I do promise to try and finish before the top of the hour. Fabulous. Thank you very much, Alina.
Thank you very much, John. And looking forward for the next meeting.
Okay. Well, see you on the next call.